Parallelism, the writing manual, page 51, parallelism. So what is parallelism? Parallelism is all about balance. It is about making sure that details in a sentence are expressed in the same form or with the same part of speech. You may want to go ahead and highlight this here. This is the formal way of saying what the parallelism rule is all about. When words or phrases are paired or are part of a series, they should have the same form or part of speech. So let's go ahead and just take a look at a quick example here. Example 1. If you want to try doing it on your own, you can pause the video. I'm going to go ahead and do this one right now. So example 1 says the small town was devastated by a storm that uprooted trees, leveled houses, and was snapping power lines. So what we have in this sentence, we have 3 details here. 1, 2, and 3. And they are part of a comma series. So we have sort of an X in the comma series, a Y in the comma series, then we have our and then we have a Z in the comma series. When we have details, words or phrases that are part of a comma series, that are paired by the comma series, we want our 3 things to be in the same form or part of speech. And it should be pretty clear to most of you that we do not have the same form or part of speech here. What we have are 2 past participles, 2 ed forms of a verb, uprooted and leveled. So our X and Y are eds. And then all of a sudden we switch into the past progressive or past continuous form of the verb. We switch into this ing form of the verb. We don't want to do that. We don't want to switch from an ed, another ed, and then all of a sudden into an ing. What we want to do is we want to remain consistent. We want our Z to be an ed. So what we should do is get rid of was snapping and simply change it to snapped. And now we have parallelism. Now we have our X, Y, and Z all in the same form or part of speech. That's what parallelism is about. It's about making sure that things look pretty, that things look balanced and sound nice and balanced and symmetrical to our ears. So this example, example 1, actually has the most common parallelism tip-off clue on the SAT, and that is, we'll go ahead and write down, comma series. Okay, if you want to elaborate on that, you can write down a series of words / phrases separated by commas. And again, it's that X, comma, Y, comma, and Z form that you want to keep a lookout for. And the rule is, as we said before, I'm going to switch into some capital letters here. The words / phrases in the series must have the same form / part of speech. Ran out of room there. Just squeeze that in. So again, the words or phrases in the series must have the same form or part of speech. In this little schematic here, you can see what we mean, and it's exactly the same as what we just saw in example 1. We need to make sure that the X, the Y, and the Z, the 3 things that are joined by the comma series, have the same form or part of speech. If they do not, then the sentence is out of balance and we lack parallelism. So again, if this is an ed verb and this is an ed verb, this should be an ed verb. If this is an ing, this is an ing, then this should be an ing. If this is an adjective and this is an adjective, then this should be an adjective. If they're nouns, they should all be nouns. Verbs, they should all be verbs. So again, we just need to make sure that the things in the comma series match. Down below, examples 2, 3, and 4, what you're going to do here is you're going to, first of all, spot the tip-off clue. So just as a little hint, in all of these examples, the tip-off clue is the one we just discussed, the comma series. So you might want to actually even circle the tip-off clue. You might want to circle the commas in the end. So what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that the things that are joined by the comma series have the same form or part of speech. I would go ahead and take a stab at examples 2, 3, and 4, make any corrections that need to be made, and then come back and we'll do them together. In example 2, we have the costumes, which were colorful, intricate, and a great deal of money was spent on them, captivated the audience. So we have the costumes captivated the audience, and then nestled in the middle of this sentence, we have this which clause, and in that which clause, we have our tip-off clue, our comma, comma, and the comma series. In the comma series, our X, which is colorful, is an adjective, and our Y, which is intricate, is an adjective, and then all of a sudden our Z switches not just to one word or one part of speech, it switches to an independent clause. A great deal of money was spent on them. That's a complete independent clause. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to go from adjective to independent clause. We want this to be an adjective, and the way to describe something on which a great deal of money was spent is probably expensive. And now we have adjective, adjective, and adjective. And now we have parallelism. Example 3, go ahead up. You already did it, so I'll go ahead and do it right now. Hopefully you already did it. If you didn't, pause the video. So the doctor noted that the patient's symptoms, which included fever, chills, and his muscles had pain, were most likely caused by the influenza virus. So again, very similar situation. This which clause nestled in the middle of another clause, and in that which clause we have a comma, and an and. So there's our comma series, and in that comma series, our X now is a noun, our Y is a noun, and our Z is same as above. Actually, we have an independent clause. Don't want to do that. That lacks balance. We have noun, noun. We want a noun here. What we can do in this case is we can just get rid of the this material. We can just say muscle pain. So now we have fever, chills, and muscle pain. Those are all nouns. And now we have balance. Now we have parallelism. Some students do put an S on this pain here. That's actually not necessary. Students say, well, there's chills here, so that is plural, so this one has to be plural. But first of all, notice that fever is not plural. So we have singular, plural, and then singular. We just need to parallelize the nouns. We don't need to parallelize the number in this case. The number is fine going from singular to plural to singular. That's perfectly acceptable as long as they're all nouns. Example 4, scaling the world's highest peaks, comma, jumping from sheer cliffs, comma, and to descend into the ocean's greatest depths. Jared finds excitement in Earth's natural wonders. Jared sounds like a nut to me, but to each his own, whatever. Scaling the world's highest peak, so there's our X, and that's, notice, an ing. And here's our Y after the first comma here. We've got another ing. And then after this comma and the and, we have what is known as an infinitive. For those of you that have done idioms, you should know what an infinitive looks like and what it is. So our Z here, our Z is an infinitive, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to switch from INGs to an infinitive. What we want to do is we want to make this infinitive into an ING. We'll make it descending, and then we have our X ing, Y ing, and Z ing. Scaling, comma, jumping, comma, and descending, Jared finds excitement. Now we have balance. The comma series is the most common tip-off clue for parallelism. Most of the time when you see ETS testing parallelism, it is the comma series that's going to give it away that ETS is testing parallelism. However, On page 52, we see 3 more parallelism tip-off clues. There are a couple of other things that should alert you to a possible parallelism error. So here they are. We'll go through all of these. In these examples, just remember you want to be doing these 3 things. You want to be circling the parallelism tip-off clues. You want to cross off the non-parallel portions, and you want to write an appropriate correction, just like we did on the examples on the previous page. So our first additional parallelism tip-off clue would be a conjunction. And I'm just going to write down and, or, but. Those 3 conjunctions. Really, it could be probably any conjunction, but and, or, and but tend to be the most common conjunctions when parallelism errors are afoot. And then over here on the right, you can see this schematic again, like we had on the previous page. We just need to make sure that when we have a conjunction between 2 words or 2 phrases, that the 2 words and phrases have the same form. So again, if this is an adjective, this should be an adjective. If this is an independent clause, this should be an independent clause. If this is an ed verb, this should be an ed verb. Again, our x and our y, the 2 things that are paired by the conjunction, they should have the same form or part of speech. They should be balanced. They should be parallel. So in examples 1 and 2, might want to go ahead and do those right now. Pause the video if you would like. In example 1, we have the boxers agreed to return to their respective corners, and they would wait until the judges finished deliberating. So here's our parallelism tip-off clue right there, the conjunction. So we need to look at the 2 things that are joined by this and figure out if they match. So what is this and joining? It is joining what the boxers agreed to do. They agreed to, number 1, or our x, they agreed to return to their respective corners, and then we have after our y, we have sort of this, let me make that a y, we have this they would wait, which is an independent clause. So we go from an infinitive here, to return, to an independent clause, they would wait. We don't want to do that. We want to stay consistent. We want to stay balanced. So the boxers agreed to x, return, and y, wait. Now there are a couple of other ways to see this. For instance, some students think that the agreed is the x. The boxers agreed to return and waited until the judges finished. That's perfectly fine also, as long as we have parallelism. As long as we have balance, we're okay. But certainly, the way the sentence stands now, it is not balanced. So that is example 1. Example 2, the doctor told Tristan to drink soups and shakes, but solid foods were to be avoided for several days after the procedure. So we have this but here. That would be our tip-off clue indicating we need to make sure that things are parallelized. So what is paired by the but? Well, it's the things that the doctor told Tristan to do. The doctor told Tristan to drink. Okay, so there's our first item that is paired by the but. And then after the but, we have solid foods were to be avoided. Once again, we switch into an independent clause here. Solid foods were to be avoided. That is also, for those of you that spotted it, you might have recognized that is the passive voice, and passive voice is generally not preferred on this test. We'll talk about passive voices at a later time. So what we can do here, we can, to match the y to the x, we can turn all of this here into an infinitive. So the doctor told Tristan to drink, but to avoid, and then we've got to tack on the solid foods. So now we have the doctor told Tristan to drink, but to avoid. And now we have balance. Now we have an infinitive here in our x position and an infinitive here in our y position. So that is example 2. The correlating conjunctions. Here are the correlating conjunctions. Probably just go ahead and list some of these. This is not an exhaustive list, but neither ... nor, either dot 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 or, both dot 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 and, not only dot 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 but also, and there's a few more. Let's list whether dot 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 or. There are more pairs of these, but these guys are probably the most common, and they'll give you a good idea of what we're talking about here. When we have these correlating conjunction pairs, what we need to make sure of here is that the two items, the two words or phrases that come after each half of the pair, they need to be parallelized. So if we have either adjective, we have to have or adjective. If we, oops, that was supposed to be a J. If we have neither and then a noun, we have to have nor and then a noun. So again, it is the items, the words or phrases that come after each half of the correlating conjunction that you want to be parallelized. Examples 3 and 4, go ahead and do them on your own. Pause the video if you would like. In example 3, we have, although it is more expensive than last year's model, this year's model has neither a better ride nor improves upon gas mileage. So here's our tip-off clue. We have the neither and the nor. That would be our correlating conjunction pair. And what we need to make sure of is that the thing that comes after each half, so we have an X here, and that is a noun. And then after the nor, what do we have? We have our Y, which is a verb phrase, improves upon gas mileage. So our Y is a verb phrase. The noun up here in the X position and the verb phrase down here in the Y position, they do not match. So we do not have matching pieces after each half of our correlating conjunction phrase. So what we need to do is we need to change this second half. We will change the second half into a noun, and the way that we can do that is by saying improved gas mileage. So now we have neither a better ride nor improved gas mileage, and this is just a noun phrase centered around this noun mileage. Gas and improved are just adjectives describing that noun, but the mileage is the center part or most important part of that phrase. So we have a noun phrase here and a noun phrase here, and now we have balance. Number 4, Drew did not know whether to apply to college or should he take a year off. Definitely take a year off, Drew. Have fun. Enjoy your life. Actually, you'll enjoy your life in college. Just go to college. It'll be just as fun. Drew did not know whether, there's the first half of our correlating conjunction pair, and then the or, that's the second half, and after the first half in our X position we have to apply, that's an infinitive, and then we have this clause here, should he take a year off, that's in the Y position after the or. So once again, we do not have matching things after each half of our correlating conjunction pair. So what we want to do is we want to change this to an infinitive. And now what we have is Drew did not know whether to apply or to take a year off. And now we have balance. Now we have parallelism. Comparisons down at the bottom of the page. Our last tip-off clue for parallelism. Comparison. So basically the eyeball here, go ahead and write down dash ER words or more/less followed by than. So ER words or more/less followed by than, and you can see some examples here. More than, greater, there would be an ER word, than, less than. Anytime you see a conjunction being made, the two things that are compared have to have the same form or part of speech in order for them to be parallel. So once again, if I have an adjective here, I'm going to need an adjective after the than. If I have an ed verb before the comparison, then I need an ed verb after the comparison. So the two things that are being compared have to have the same form or part of speech. Go ahead and do number 5 on your own. Press pause on the video and then come back and join us when you're done. Okay, so in number 5, we have depending on how much you drive and what type of driver you are, leasing may be more beneficial than to own a car. So where's our tip-off clue? Well, we have a more right there. That's what we said up here, the more. And then we have a than here. So we know that there's a comparison being made. We see more than, we know there's a comparison being made. We have to make sure that the things that come before and after in the comparison, the first thing in the comparison and the second thing in the comparison, are matching. So in this comparison, we have leasing more beneficial than to own. So what do? We flip-flop from an ing form of a verb to an infinitive, and we don't want to do that. They do not match. Our x and our y before and after the comparison do not match, so we probably in this case just want to change to own, the infinitive, into owning, an ing word, and now we have balance. Leasing more beneficial than owning. Now we have parallelism. That is it for parallelism. Once again, remember, it is about balance. It is about making sure that words that are paired or in a series have the same form or part of speech. Form or part of speech. Several tip-off clues that you need to know. You need to know the comma series. You need to know that conjunctions, correlating conjunctions, and comparisons can also indicate parallelism issues. That is all for parallelism.